This is the Sports Bash Warm-Up with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Josh Hennig.
Not great right now. And look, you're going to have bumps at the start. That's just inevitable when you're endeavoring to do 14,000 tests a week. But the Oakland A's had intake testing, Greeny, on Friday that was taken between 11 and 1 o'clock. They still do not have the results of that yet, and thus had to cancel a full squad workout yesterday and don't even know if their position players are going to get to work out today. The Los Angeles Angels yesterday just did not have the testers show up. They were supposed to take tests, they were supposed to have it sent out. Didn't happen. You see incidents like this across baseball, and when Sean Doolittle says we got to clean it up, he's absolutely right.
That was Jeff Passan on Get Up this morning. Listen, while some sports actually did plan ahead for the actual reason why the world got shut down back in March, baseball's floundering their way to the start line. Not the finish line, the start line. Josh Hennig, hope you had a good weekend, by the way. 4th of July weekend, holiday, all that good stuff. Hope you stayed safe. Hope you had a good relaxing time, whatever you were doing. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad will join me coming up at 1:25 to talk about Sixers and as they endeavor to start the NBA season, the MLS, which is back in action this Wednesday. And I'm glad Kevin's coming on today because Kevin can talk about a lot of different things, and it's becoming more and more obvious that baseball doesn't have a clue. Baseball just is doggone clueless. When I woke up to the news this morning about not one, not two, but now 3 baseball camps that are canceling workouts because they can't get tests back, on one hand, I'm not surprised, but on the other hand, I'm certainly concerned. So it's a duality because on one hand, I'm not surprised because baseball spent 2 months screaming about money in games while the other sports were concerned about health and safety procedures. And I understand that not all the sports have done a flawless job at executing this. One of the reasons why I'm going to have Kevin Kinkead on today because the MLS did fumble the ball a little bit at the very beginning, but they recovered the fumble and they still ran for a first down, which the first down being you actually are going to be able to start games. Basketball, it was a little awkward. The way they went about it, the whole people driving up to be tested and, people are going to reach in their window and stick swabs up their nose and take their blood. The whole thing was a little weird. We understand that. Hockey, you can go to the 97.3 ESPN.com. Kevin Durso's got the information about what's going on with the NHL as they are progressing day by day to having everything in place for them to start their season. The UFC has been testing and retesting, and NASCAR and the PGA, they fumbled a little bit, but they've gotten better. Baseball literally can't even get to the starting line without dropping something. I mean, they're dropping the name tag that tells you what runner they are. They're dropping their phone when they're not supposed to have the phone during the race. They're fumbling over themselves. They tripped over their untied shoelaces. It's incredibly embarrassing. This is the reason why when Billy Schweim asked on the locker room on Saturday which sport will actually be more likely to finish their season, that I was totally on board with everybody voting against baseball because baseball literally doesn't know what they're doing. Listen, I'm looking forward to the day that we can talk about the sports on the field every day. But until this pandemic goes away, we're stuck with all of the stuff that comes with it. And I use the word stuff very loosely because let's be realistic. When multiple baseball teams cancel their workouts because they're waiting for the results of a COVID-19 test from Friday, and today is Monday, and the current rumored excuse is, well, there might have been issues with shipping and delivery. Why is baseball the one sport having this problem? Please, someone answer that question. Why are the other sports able to get their tests back within an expedient amount of time and baseball can't? You know why? Because baseball's priorities were never in the right place from the beginning. Think about it. You have other sports that are doing COVID-19 tests and doing PED tests at the same time. You had the NBA come out and say, we're not going to test for recreational drugs because our priority is on the COVID-19 testing and the PED testing. So literally basketball is telling you, if you want to go out and have a good time in your room with some substances, like let's say marijuana, just inferring, that's okay as long as you don't test positive for COVID. The NBA gets it. The other sports get it. Listen, basketball, they're testing you for everything. The UFC, they're testing you for everything. Hockey, they're they're crossing their T's, dotting their I's, and baseball is literally not tying their shoelaces before they get to the starting line. By the way, the latest round of testing for the NHL just came out. The NHL says 23 out of 396 players have tested positive at a 5% rate. Now, that's on top of the additional 12 positive tests before that. So remember, some of these sports are having multiple groups of testing. So they tested weeks ago, then they're testing again and again. And this is going to be a thing that everyone's going to have to get used to. The fact is that they're going to be testing players constantly, and that's part of the reason why they're going to hope to maybe come back and make all this work. But baseball can't get any of the test results back. And that tells me that baseball doesn't care. They don't care about you. They don't respect your intelligence as a fan. They don't care and respect the safety of the players and the coaches and everybody on the field. All they cared about was making sure that the owners get their cut of the financial pie. These are billionaires who are worried about paying people, basically. And listen, while I'm excited to see that Spencer Howard is at Citizens Bank Park right now, throwing from the mound, everyone's wearing masks, that's great. But part of the reality right now that we have to be honest about is I would love to talk about the Phillies today. I would love, like I did with Frank Close on Saturday, but we couldn't even get away from the COVID-19 conversation. And that's just something we're all going to have to accept. We're all going to have to accept that until this pandemic goes away, whenever that is, everyone only has a guesstimate about when any of this stuff is going to die down or not become a topic anymore. But until it doesn't, it's going to be part of the conversation. I have to say that I'm excited that sports are coming back, but I don't have 100% confidence that a sport like baseball is going to be even starting, let alone finishing their season, for sure. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Some sports are doing it right. In fact, most of the sports are doing it right. Baseball can't figure it out, and it's embarrassing. As I mentioned, Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad is going to join us coming up at 1:25 because we got a lot of stuff to talk about with him, about the Sixers and the MLS. I'm kind of treating Kevin like the official MLS expert because my extensive knowledge of soccer is because I played soccer for a few years, not because I'm an expert on the MLS. But I have been following what's going on with the MLS, and they're testing their protocols, and they themselves fumbled the ball a little bit at the very beginning. They did not properly build their timetable to handle the different aspects that come with a positive testing and the layers that go with it. They didn't quarantine guys for long enough after testing. For example, they didn't do the full 48 hours after testing when the tests come back. They only isolated some of the guys for 24 hours. Then you find out that some of them tested positive. They got to re-quarantine all over again instead of leaving them quarantined until they got all the tests back. So it's not like the MLS has done it perfectly either. But what the MLS did is say, okay, we made a mistake. We got to fix it. Like, how do we adjust this? How do we make this work so we can get back to playing and being officially the first money-making team sport in the United States to come back? They made adjustments. And I think that's what baseball needs to learn from. That this is all a learning process, and this is all something that everyone has to figure out along the way, and that if you do things the right way, there is a possibility you can pull this off. But if you don't do things the right way, it's going to implode in your face, and everyone's going to bail on you. And right now, when players like Sean Doolittle and others, like the A's GM, Billy Beane, are screaming from the rooftops, this is an embarrassment, and we're not going to put people in harm's way because baseball has a shipping or delivery problem, which I'm not even fully sure if that's the reason. That's just the conjecture being put out there by some reporters. Then I got to say, baseball doesn't have a clue. Meanwhile, the NBA is on track to actually starting their season. MLS is on track to starting their season. And I was listening to the Low Post podcast with Zach Lowe and John Hollinger. And they talked about a lot of different things. But one of the things I really wanted to bring to you folks here listening is one of the points they brought up, I think, that doesn't get talked about enough. And it's something that I'm guilty of not actually focusing in on as much either, is the 76ers, when we went to break, we had a lot of theories and a lot of beliefs of what they would be when they came back. But the fact is that this is a team that the only way they're going to be successful is they play a certain way. And as Zach Lowe puts it, that first game is versus the Pacers, and that could be the game that changes everything.
Their very first game in the bubble is against Indiana. Mark it down. That's a big game. If Philadelphia wins that game, they not only jump over Indiana in the standings, they almost certainly win the tiebreaker against Indiana because they even the head-to-head matchup at 2, and they have a better conference record by 3 games if they win that game. So that's a hugely important game.
And I'll admit that's something I haven't focused on enough. And I think that's something that we need to think about, is that the Sixers, when they come back, they have one game that could legitimately make or break them. And that is the Pacers. Because if you get that win over the Pacers, you hold the tiebreakers in your hand. And the benefit for the Sixers, the Pacers, and the Heat is that they've all played the same number of games. So there's not going to be any funniness, any weird math that has to be done with winning percentages or anything if there's a tiebreaker involved. That is just going to be straight up normal tiebreakers like your conference record. And while a lot of us have focused on the Sixers' full schedule, the fact that it's the second easiest strength of schedule for teams returning to action, the 76ers, if they don't win that Pacers game, it potentially is an uphill battle. And with no Oladipo, to be brutally honest, you frankly should win the game. Because if you don't win the game, what you're saying is that you weren't ready to do this. And you can't say anybody is more or less ready than each other because of the fact that, guess what? Everyone was off for about 4 months. Everyone's going to have a handful of scrimmage games. Everyone's had to go through the trials and tribulations of maneuvering this whole COVID-19 situation. So you have no excuse because everybody's coming in with the same set of problems against them. And if the Pacers are playing a game without Victor Oladipo, and the Pacers are coming in as a team that, remember, Malcolm Brogdon was one of the guys who tested positive, and we don't know exactly how well guys rebound from testing positive to COVID to post-COVID yet. We're going to find that out pretty quickly. If you're as healthy as everyone says you are, and B's been working out 6 days a week, and Ben Simmons is looking swole, and he's been working out with LeBron and all this stuff, if the Sixers are as healthy and physically ready to go as people says they are, then they should go out there, beat the Pacers, and handle their business, because that schedule that has been put in front of them is an opportunity for them to really move up and to put themselves in a position to maybe have an easier schedule. As John Hollinger and Zach Lowe put it, the Sixers actually have an easier schedule ahead of them after that Pacers game than the Miami Heat do.
Likely, not certain, we get Jimmy Butler against the Sixers in the first round. I say not certain because Miami has a tough schedule and a front-loaded tough schedule.
And they play Indiana twice, so if Indy wins both games, they're caught up. Miami owns a tiebreak against both these teams, but if they lose both Indiana games, yeah, Miami could easily end up at 6. Because Philly's schedule is easy in this thing. Like, Philly should be able to move up.
Philly's schedule is angel food cake, and it's a no-brainer that they should not be 6th. If they care about not being 6th, they shouldn't be 6th.
I love that comment at the end. If they care about not being 6, they don't have to be 6. And listen, I've previously said that I'm not a fan of the Sixers versus the Heat in the first round, but that was under different circumstances. We're all looking still at the NBA as home court advantage and all the prerequisites that come with a non-neutral site COVID-19 NBA bubble environment. But now, a lot of that stuff goes out the way. I'm not worried about the Miami Heat home court. I'm not worried about the travel. I'm not worried about the potential of fly in one night, play the next night, etc. scenarios. A lot of this stuff has been equaled out. So it's just about playing basketball. And if it's just about playing basketball, we all have to admit that if the Sixers play up to their potential, and if they're as healthy and ready to go as everybody thinks that they should be, then this team should be a contender. And if they should be a contender, then they should handle their business against the Pacers. They should blow past a couple of the teams in the standings, and they will have to probably face the Bucks in the second round. But in some ways, this is not like previous scenarios. This is just purely mano-a-mano, and we're letting the system play out in a completely different environment. And I'm looking forward to this chess match because that's what it's going to be. After the 3 scrimmage games that the Sixers have, then you're going to go forward with an 8-game stretch run with a lot of what ifs and I don't knows and stuff that it's going to be fun to look at because everyone is dealing with the same issues. Everyone has the same set of problems that they have to work through, whether it's the testing, whether it's the only 8 games in 15, 16 days, whatever the scenario is, everyone's facing the same problems. And let's not forget that players do get injured, by the way. Injuries do happen in sports. So who's to say that, yeah, Zion looks great in a bunch of photographs, but who's to say that he doesn't sprain his ankle by landing on someone after going up about 12 feet for a rebound? He's skies high for a rebound, lands on somebody's foot, twists his ankle, and he misses the rest of the 8 games. That can happen. But that's part of basketball. You play the sport and you go out there with the risk of having something happen. But everyone's on the same footing. Everyone's in the same problems and situations, unless you're the Brooklyn Nets and you lost about half your team already for various reasons. Except for the Nets, pretty much everybody's in the same the same boat, okay? The Nets are on the side boat that's connected to the cruise ship, and they're stuck on a bunch of rocky waves right now on high tide. Aside from the Nets, everyone's in the same boat. I'm Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. We have Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad coming up in just a few minutes. As I mentioned, text board open 609-403-0973. Also coming up on the Sports Bash, Tom Moore will be joining Mike Gill and Hunter Brody at 5:30 to talk more about the Sixers. Also, Tom Moore is down at the Phillies summer camp today, so I'm sure the guys will have a lot to talk to with Tom Moore coming up on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Speaking of 97.3 ESPN, we were telling you last week, Friday was the day they went on sale. Rife Bar and Restaurant in Atlantic City, $25 instant voucher for $12.50. There are still some available, but they're going to sell out soon. You want to get this seize the deal opportunity ASAP. Rife Bar and Restaurant, there's still a handful of them available. Don't miss out. $25 instant voucher for $12.50. Right now, seize this deal. For more information, 973ESPN.com. And when that sells out, we have another great opportunity for you to win another great voucher. And this one is for not one, but two places in Wildwood. Yuri's and the Boathouse in Wildwood. Two excellent restaurants. That's this Friday's deal. Seize the deal opportunity. So today you have a chance to still get that Rife Bar and Restaurant opportunity right now. And you have an opportunity this Friday for the two restaurants in Wildwood, Yuri's and the Boathouse in Wildwood. So today, you still have time, but don't wait. Opportunities are running out. Seize this deal right now for Rife Bar and Restaurant in Atlantic City. $25 voucher for just $12.50. For more information, go to 97.3 ESPN's mobile app. I'm Josh Hennig. We'll be back next with Kevin Kinkead from Crossing Broad. NBA, MLS, and more right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Josh Hennig back here on the warm-up, 97.3 ESPN. As promised, joining us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline from Crossing Broad. He told me off the air he's zoomed out with all these Sixers Zoom calls. Also, we'll talk a little MLS because what do the MLS and the NBA have in common? Well, they're actually going to get a season started. Unlike baseball right now, it can't get it out of their own way. Kevin joins us, as I said, on the Boardwalk on the hotline. Kevin, how you doing today?
Josh, what's going on, man? How you been?
I'm doing pretty good. So before we get to anything else, is it just me or is it completely exasperating that every other sport can figure out how to do this testing, but baseball walks up to the start line with their shoes untied and they've already tripped and fell on their face?
Yeah, it is. And it's ironic too, because, you know, we sat here, you know, last week, the week before that, wondering if there was going to even be baseball this year and thinking that they were so far behind. And now the players are out there practicing and we don't have the testing results in time. It's like we put baseball in a time warp and went from no baseball at all to now we're like too far in front of ourselves and we're tripping over our own shoelaces.
And I think it's interesting because I get it that not every sport has gotten 100% right. And one of them is a sport that's going to start this week. The first official team sport in America that actually makes money. That's the caveat I'm making because I know the women's soccer league started about 2 weeks ago. But the MLS is starting this week. And listen, they fumbled a little bit getting out of the gate, but they kind of adjusted and figured things out.
Yeah, and look, I think everybody has to take a step back here and understand that nobody was going to get this perfect. And no league was going to get this perfect. We've never done this before. We've never navigated a global pandemic before. This is the first global pandemic of our lifetimes, you know. And, you know, you can point at every league having a different issue. You know, you mentioned the women's league, NWSL, played a tournament out in Utah, and the Orlando team had to skip out of it entirely because they had a bunch of positive tests because a bunch of the younger players, I guess, went out partying or something like that. The Dallas team in MLS had a bunch of positives, and so their opening round game, which I think was scheduled for Thursday or Friday, that was postponed and pushed back. Individually, you have NBA players, WNBA players who are opting out. We have the issues with the testing in baseball, and the Nationals today, canceling their training because they don't have their test back from Friday. So people have to understand. I think people got to understand that this was always going to be the case, that we were always going to have hiccups here, and we were going to forge ahead with it no matter what. The idea, we were never going down there and doing this under the guise that everybody was going to be 100% and we'd have 0 positive cases and everything was going to be flawless. And, reasonably enough, our local team, the Union, didn't have any cases. They had one guy who had COVID in March and is recovered and is fine. And they got down there with no problems, and it seems like they're looking forward to playing on Thursday morning. So, it's either, I think people just got to understand this was never going to be a case of like, everybody's completely healthy, let's go. There's always going to be caveats and asterisks that we were adding onto it.
Right. But part of the problem is that the whole world is under an asterisk. So who am I to say that one asterisk is more serious than another? By the way, for those who do care, MLS MVP Carlos Vela has opted out of the return. So, Kevin, what does that mean though? Like, for those out there who, like I said earlier, like my knowledge of soccer is I played for a few years in high school because I went to a high school without a football team. So my knowledge of soccer is I played it and I can watch a game. I know what's going on. Not like I know every single player in the MLS. So if you could explain to people like me in the audience out there, what does the loss of the MLS MVP mean for the return of MLS?
Well, I mean, just from a legitimacy standpoint, if you told me straight up that like LeBron James or Giannis wasn't going to play in the NBA return at the end of this month, we'd all say, well, it's a scam. It doesn't mean anything, because the best player in the league is not going to be there. So it's illegitimate, whoever gets crowned the winner or whoever wins the golden boot for most goals scored or something like that, because Carlos Vela scored a bazillion goals last year, and he's by far the best attacking player in the league. He's a winger, forward striker. But, from a soccer perspective, it doesn't mean as much. I mean, look, there's 11 guys on the field, and, the individual impact of like a Lionel Messi or a Cristiano Ronaldo is not the same as, take basketball where you got 5 guys on the floor and one of them is Giannis. The individual contributions of an MVP are greater in basketball, or if your MVP is Tom Brady or somebody like that, or a goalkeeper in the NHL. The individual contributions of soccer players are not the same as they are in other sports, but just the legitimacy of saying, hey, we're playing a tournament without our best player. What does it really mean? Even if the Union went down there and won the whole thing and they beat LAFC, who Vela plays for in the final, then everybody's going to say, well, they didn't beat Vela,
Kevin Kinkead joining us here on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Kinkead. Crossing Broad follows the MLS, also covering the Sixers. And speaking of the Sixers, let's switch it over to the NBA right now, Kevin. And that is, I'm very curious to see what exactly happens with this return because of one specific thing. I'm slowly coming to grips with the reality that literally everything that we thought about the NBA before the shutdown happened is probably just going to be null and void because everyone is literally coming in with a 4-month off-season clean slate into this bubble where pretty much everyone, unless you're the Brooklyn Nets, are on the same page, basically.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think that we all kind of agreed that the teams that had something to play for would take this seriously and would go into it with motivation. And the teams that didn't really have anything to play for, any motivation, would just kind of whatever. Got a couple Brooklyn Nets who they're probably not going to win it all. So some of those guys are sitting out. Trevor Ariza already has a ring. Davis Bertans is going to be a free agent, and he's not going to win a ring this year. So is he going to go down there and risk getting himself COVID or, hurting his knee or something like that? Of course not. But the good thing is that for Philadelphia sports fans, the Sixers seem like they're interested in going down there and playing, and everybody seems to be on the same page. And what we're hearing on these numerous Zoom calls that I can't get enough of are people saying and doing the right things, that they want to go down there to play, go down there to win. They're locked in. Everybody's looking forward to kind of proving that the beginning of the season was not what this team is. So I think that's how it is. That's how it's going to be for NBA, MLS, baseball, I think you're going to have a set of guys who are like interested and motivated and others that aren't, so you take the groups that are interested and motivated and you say, put them in a vacuum, no home court advantage, no road court disadvantage, no fans, no external factors. Everybody goes into the vacuum and we're just going to see who wants it more,
Now, speaking of who wants it more, I know that the Sixers are becoming a popular dark horse pick for a lot of people around the media. But, Kevin, my question for you is, this is a Sixers team that we know was built with one idea in mind, which was they were going to be able to match up, in theory, with the Bucks and potentially beat them in a series. So is them playing defense at the end of the day going to be the thing that makes or breaks this Sixers playoff run?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, because they're not going to shoot their way to a title. I think we all know that. They're not going to, 3-point shoot their way to a title. So I think the bigger point here, Josh, is like we had always said, we got us. This team is built for the playoffs. This team is built for the playoffs. I mean, how many times did we tell ourselves that? They're tall, they're big, they're long, they're lean. They were built to lock down teams defensively with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid patrolling the paint and Al Horford hopefully coming in, being able to spell Joel Embiid's minutes. I mean, everybody remembers how great the Sixers were with Embiid on the floor defensively last year. And then when he came off, wasn't Greg Monroe like a -9 in 2 minutes or something like that? So that was always what it was going to be. And it would be all these people want to come out with these, allow me to editorialize quickly. All these people come out and they say, well, cancel sports. We don't need this. We don't need that or whatever. Well, it's fine. Okay, it's fine. It's your opinion. But, this Sixers team, the season would be totally incomplete unless we actually got a chance to see if the way this team was constructed worked in the playoffs, because that's what they built it for. It was not built to be a regular season team. It was built to get them into the playoffs and then compete in the playoffs. So I want to see what happens when they finally get to that point. And like I said the last time you and I did this, this is probably the best opportunity that Brett Brown is going to have to take a healthy team into the playoffs ever.
Now, you mentioned a healthy team. We've heard about Joel and Ben and how great and healthy and in shape they are. We've all seen the pictures of Ben Simmons looking like he's put on about probably a little bit more muscle than anybody expected him to put on in about a 2-month period. But what can we actually expect from a team coming off of a break like this? Because in many ways, as I said earlier, this is basically like a mini offseason. We know how much guys improve from one season to the next. Well, it's been about 4 months. So what is an actual fair expectation for these guys coming back?
Well, first of all, physically, you're going to see guys have a little bit more muscle packed on because, as you go through the season, you're not lifting as many weights. You're doing a lot of cardio and you're going to start cutting weight naturally. It's like I gained 10 pounds during quarantine because I haven't played soccer in 4 months. So then when Ben Simmons starts getting back to the routine, he can put muscle on at the beginning of the season, but he's going to start to shed a little bit of that because as many minutes as he plays through a year, as much running as he does naturally, your cardio, you start to burn things and you become leaner. So that's one thing. The other thing we can expect is just to hit the reset button, really. Everybody, I think, kind of forgets that, right before the stoppage, Ben was injured. But a couple games before that, Al Horford had come out of the starting lineup, and they were trying different starting lineups. And there was this admission that the Al Horford, Joel Embiid thing might not work. So that's one thing they're going to have to navigate. Number two is Shake Milton, your backup ball handler. You're going to try to play an off ball with Ben Simmons handling the ball. So they still have, they might be in great physical shape. They might be saying all the right things, but there's still, strategical and tactical kinks to work out here. Wondering if Brett Brown can put the pieces together.
Now I'm going to pitch you my theory and you can either shoot it down or give me the thumbs up. Okay, Kevin?
Okay.
So my theory is the Sixers starting lineup should be Shake Milton, Matisse Thybulle, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, and Embiid for this reason. We know the Sixers don't have a very good offense, but if you can go out there and play elite defense, shut down or at least slow down the other team's starting unit, then come off the bench with some scorers, it actually could neutralize some of the other high-scoring teams because you're basically throwing guys like Thybulle and Milton out there against guys like Eric Bledsoe, Kemba Walker, and others, instead of hoping that Ben and Tobias have to do all that work against the starting unit. Thoughts?
Well, I like it. It's interesting. I would just swap out Matisse Thybulle for Josh Richardson, because Josh Richardson's a really good defensive player too when he's healthy. I think everybody forgets that he was dealing with a hamstring too, but he can give you better scoring than Matisse. So, I think, the path that you're trying to go down, if you think that Al Horford, if anybody's in the family of Al Horford should come off the bench, then your starting lineup will be Ben Simmons at the 1, Shake Milton at the 2, Josh Richardson goes down to the 3, Tobias Harris plays power forward, and Joel Embiid. That's the way you would get Shake in there and basically just replace Horford with Shake Milton and then move everybody down a spot. Defensively, that might not be as stout, but you get more offense off of that. The question really is what can Shake Milton exist in an off-ball role with Ben Simmons handling the ball? Because I think everybody forgets that when Shake went on his big run right before the shutdown, he was the point guard and he had the ball in his hands. And there's not a lot of evidence. I think I got to go look at the numbers again, but there weren't a ton of minutes shared where they were both on the floor at the same time. So I like your theory. I would just, if you were going to do it, I'd probably just have Josh Richardson in there.
Now, if I can just play a little devil's advocate with you, is it really that about Shake playing with Ben, or is it about Ben playing with Shake Milton? Because we know that the original theory is that Ben was supposed to be the quote-unquote point guard, but haven't we seen the majority of success by teams in this league that they have multiple ball handlers? Like, you can go through the list of teams in the league, they all have multiple ball handlers. So isn't some of this on Ben to adjust to the idea that he might not be the only guy bringing the ball up the court?
Yeah, well, it depends on how much you believe in Ben as a power forward or as a screener. How do you want to use him? Do you want to play pick and roll with him? Do you want to use him as a roller? Because the issue has never been, having a ball handling. Like, obviously you'd love to have both of those guys on the court together, but, oftentimes you've shown that you can't. Well, where do you put Ben when he doesn't have the ball? They stick him in the dunker spot. They put him weak side under the rim. Can't space him out to the corner because he's not a 3-point shooter. He can't really sort of hover there around the elbow. You can use him in a Al Horford role and have him pass, but either you believe in him as a screener and a roller there, or you stick him under the basket because his offensive game, his off-ball game hasn't evolved to the point where you can kind of stick him out on the wing or put him in the corners or make him an open shooting threat. So I think everybody loves the idea of having those two guys on the floor together, but it's more about the way to do it, I think, would be to have Ben with the ball in his hands, and then Shake Milton would have to sort of find his shots without the ball in his hand, and that's probably the best way you would do it.
Well, I ran the numbers before the weekend, and I noticed this, and you can steal this if you want for something for Crossing Broad, Kevin, but from January 22nd to March 11th, the frame when Shake Milton was actually playing every day. Before that, he barely played at all. But during that stretch, he was shooting 51% from 3. So it's not like he's incapable of playing off the ball. I think people just assume that he is or isn't because his name isn't, J.J. Redick, Furkan Korkmaz. People assume that he can't be a floor spreader when actually the numbers show that he can.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You just have to go, you'd have to dive a little bit deeper into, film study and say, how are they using him? How is he taking his shots? Were they catch and shoot? Was he pulling up from 3-point? Were they running pick and roll with him? You'd have to do a little bit more of a concerted dive there and see, here's how he was scoring. Can we replicate that with Ben Simmons on the floor? Yeah, maybe you can, maybe you can't. It's hard to say because, we can't magically predict how defenses would respond seeing both of those guys at the same time. Maybe if they're both on the floor and the ball is in Shake's hands and Ben Simmons is standing under the basket or in the corner or something like that, they just send a help defender off of Ben Simmons. They send Ben's guy to address Shake or somebody else, and then maybe it doesn't work. But it's a good story idea, actually. Maybe that's something I dive into as we get closer. Pull some video clips and do something about actual basketball again.
Absolutely. All right, Kevin. Before I let you go, the most important question of our conversation I'm going to ask you right here, and that is, which Philly team is going to go deeper in their respective postseason? The Sixers or the Union?
Sixers or the Union? Let me see. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about the Union's chances just because of the things that they're saying, and also because their tournament is like it's kind of like a bracket. It's kind of like a group play into a knockout bracket. It's kind of like World Cup style, and I like them to get out of their group. So it's hard to compare the two, but I say they both go about the same distance. I think the Sixers can easily make it to the finals. I don't think they would beat the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Union can go to the semifinals, and I'll answer that by just dodging the question and say they'll both go the same the same distance in their respective tournaments.
Would you like me to check back with you in 2 weeks? How about that?
Yeah, if I'm correct, then we'll pull the audio, and if I'm incorrect, then we'll just pretend I never said it.
Oh, that? Absolutely. Yeah, well, we'll just make it like it didn't happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know what I said 2 weeks ago. It doesn't count. I mean, I was jumping from Zoom call to Zoom call. I don't remember what day it is.
That's right. That's a good excuse, and if it comes down to that, then we'll just pull that one out of the hat.
He's Kevin Kinkead. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Kinkead, crossing broad, covering the Sixers and the Union and more over there. Again, at Kevin_Kinkead on Twitter. Kevin, appreciate your time on a Monday, and do your best with those Zoom calls to stay awake, okay?
I will, man. We got 2 more later today, so by the end of the day, I'll be zoomed out.
Well, good luck. We're all counting on you.
All right, man. See you.
He's Kevin Kinkead. I'm Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. One more segment coming up here on the warm-up, 609-403-0973. Get on the conversation right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Josh Hennig back here on the warm-up. Final segment for the Sports Bash. Mike Gill, Hunter Brody stuffing his face. Mike Gill doing work as usual over there on the side. Coming up, they got Kevin Durso, the NHL, another step in the right direction to get the season started. You know, the NHL actually has made figures. They know what they're doing. Baseball can't even get out of their own way, but hockey knows what they're doing. So Kevin Durso is going to join the guys coming up at 2:30. Tom Moore been jumping from Sixers Zoom call to Zoom call. He's also down at the Philly summer camp today, trying to stay dry. Spencer Howard's on the mound today down at Citizens Bank Park. So we'll talk about that coming up on Sports Bash. Also football at 4. Jeff Mooch joins the guys for Emotional Monday right here on 97.3 ESPN. Want to remind you today is the final day. They're selling out quick. You better get your hands on them. The Rife Bar and Restaurant. Seize the deal opportunity, a $25 instant voucher to Rife Bar and Restaurant for just $12.50. Half the price, full $25. Don't miss out. They're selling out quick. Today is the last day you can get your hands on the Rife Bar and Restaurant opportunity today. And then after today, this Friday, you have another chance for a $25 gift card for $12.50 to not one, but 2 restaurants. Yuri's Waterfront Restaurant in Wildwood and the Boathouse Restaurant in Wildwood. So you could use it for either one. So after you get that $25 instant voucher today, you can get another $25 gift card this Friday. You can bookend your whole life with just getting gift cards going to restaurants, but it's only with Seize the Deal to get these opportunities. Rife Bar and Restaurant today is the Seize the Deal opportunity. This Friday is Yuri's Waterfront Restaurant in the Boathouse in Wildwood. For more information, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Hit that up. Get in on these great deals. You know, as I was mentioning before the break with Kevin, and we kind of like tongue-in-cheek said it, but there is something to be said for the fact that, listen, not everyone's going to get this right. I love the way Kevin painted it because we understand that this is going to be an issue moving forward. But as I said at the top of the show, baseball tried to go to the starting line without tying their shoes. They brought their phone out to the race. They didn't leave it in the locker room. They tripped and fell on their face. They broke the screen of their phone. Their nose is all scratched up. Now they got to tie their shoes and figure it out because there is no reason that you're the only sport that can't get a positive test back in a timely manner. I mean, it's completely embarrassing. Hockey's figuring this thing out. They came out and said they had 32 out of, 362 positive tests. All right, we knew that there might be some more positive tests just by the nature of the fact that you're getting guys from all over the place. The MLS fumbled the ball a little bit, but they figured it out. And as Kevin said, for the MLS, it's really more so one team that botched it than the rest of the league. the the Dallas team pretty much just, kicked themselves in the face. They're the big culprits, and now they got to push back their first game until the weekend instead of on Thursday. All right, well, the MLS is working through it. Meanwhile, the NBA, one of the big news stories I think we can't overlook today is that the Toronto Raptors have been in Florida practicing before anyone else got there. Since the Raptors have gotten to Florida, they've had no positive tests. So that tells me that the NBA has a grip on what they're doing. Baseball doesn't. And as I said earlier, Billy Schwein was asking this question on Saturday on his show, which team is more likely to finish their season? And he was perplexed that everyone kept saying baseball wouldn't finish their season. And the reason why he shouldn't be perplexed is because of this reason. Baseball now has shut down, 3 teams have shut down workouts today because they're waiting for positive tests to come back. Baseball can't get it right, they're left dependent on it. They cared more about money and games than they did about safety protocols. Meanwhile, the NBA ran 3 tests with dudes in cars pulling up and saying, let me stick a thing up your nose. This swab's going to go up your nose, take some blood. We're going to take a saliva test as well. We're going to run you for PEDs and for coronavirus all at one time. For goodness sake, the UFC had to pull out their main event for UFC 251 because Gilbert Burns' brother, and his cornerman manager all tested positive. And then in 48 hours, they turned it around. They retested Usman. They got in Masvidal. And now they got a main event back on track for UFC 251. You're telling me the UFC can figure this out and baseball can't? If you ever wondered if baseball actually cares about their players and doing the right thing, I think the situation answered itself. So yeah, I'm excited for hockey to come back. I'm excited for basketball to come back. Heck, I'm even going to check out the MLS this week just because I'm going to see if I can actually get into it or not. I'm going to give it an honest chance. Baseball, I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm not at all. Because they're probably going to trip over something else. There's probably going to be some issue with travel logistics, or there's going to be some issue with guys, testing positive, and then when they come back, one test says negative, one test says positive, then we're going to have to question, is there a false negative or a false positive along the way? Someone's probably going to injure themselves in some fluky thing like Quintana of the Cubs who cut himself doing the dishes. We're going to probably have some other fluky injury, like, a dude went to get a positive test and someone stuck the swab up their nose too far. We're probably going to have some crazy problem that's going to stop some other baseball players from playing because baseball is a bunch of fumbling people and the players are sitting there shrugging their shoulders saying, dude, figure it out. Come on, man.